is One Eye on the Horizon, a podcast specifically for people who have suffered sight loss in one eye. I lost my sight in my right eye in August 2024 in a shocking, traumatic accident. And I found it really difficult to find anybody else who was in the same boat, slightly further along the journey than me, who could tell me what it was going to be like and ultimately show me that everything was going to be okay. I felt lonely, even though I was wrapped in so much love and support from everybody around me. It was something that I had to work out myself, and I had to do a lot of searching to find stories of people in the same boat. So, in the spirit of, if you can see it, you can be it, or in this case, if you're only listening, if you can hear it, I've designed a podcast to share as many of our stories as possible, to help lift, inspire, and encourage people who are newer to this journey than us. If you're listening because you've already lost your sight or you're losing your sight in one eye, we're here for you. We see you and we feel you. You can dive in here to feel less alone and to understand that you are definitely not the only one experiencing all of these feelings and all of these physical challenges. Hear the stories of others, feel validated in what you're going through, and most importantly, understand that it is going to be okay. And hopefully we can have a little laugh along the way, because laughter makes even the heaviest things feel ever so slightly lighter. I'm Charlie, and this is One Eye on the Horizon. So, in today's episode, we meet a super inspiring lady called Carol. Carol was an adventurous soul working and living all over the world. She had multiple surgeries due to a hereditary condition in her eyes, both of them. And sadly, one of those surgeries started to fail in one of her eyes, combined with severe glaucoma, left her blind in that eye. She still has that eye, but she doesn't like the way that it looks, so she rocks an incredible range of beautiful leather eye patches. We talk about medical challenges and setbacks, and we talk about, as a woman, what it's like to have a physical difference in your face and how to accept that and how that's wrapped up with beauty. And Carol shares some of her stories and anecdotes about what this journey's been like for her. It was a pleasure to interview her, and personally quite validating to understand that we share a huge amount of the same feelings and experiences through going through our own journey of losing an eye. So let's dive in. I would like to start, if possible, with asking you to explain a little bit about who you were before losing your sight and what life looked and felt like.
Okay, I was a teacher, international teacher, living and working in Prague, where I'd been for 3 years. I'd recently met the man that I've now married. I always knew that my eyes were a ticking time bomb, because I had a hereditary corneal dystrophy. And it was during my last year living in Prague when I was actually considering going to Malaysia to take up a new job that I'd been offered, when the sight in my right eye started to go cloudy. And I knew, because I'd had a corneal graft surgery in both eyes years before, I knew that this happening meant that I was going to need to have another corneal graft because it was failing. So basically I had to call quits on this new wonderful new job I'd been offered, planned to move back to the UK with Phil, because we were together by then, and retired from teaching soon after. And so that was 2015 when I started a series of surgeries, which ultimately failed. And I lost the sight in my right eye subsequently.
And before we delve into that huge subject,
Yeah.
do you mind me asking, you said you always knew that your sight would deteriorate and you would need more surgery. How did it first appear? How did you first need those first surgeries? How did you find that out? And how old were you and what did that look like?
I was actually 10 years old when my father, who had the condition, started to show in one of his eyes, and it was discovered to be this hereditary corneal dystrophy. So they looked at me and they discovered that I'd got the condition, but it was dormant. So I didn't really give it much thought after that. Throughout my adult life, I had to go maybe once a year for a checkup. And it was in my 40s, so this is going back 20 plus years ago, that one day I was driving to work and I realized I couldn't see very well. So I just had to stop the car, walk home, and got myself to the hospital. And they said, yes, this was my right eye, because that was the first eye that went. You'll need to have a corneal graft. I was terrified because my father, when he'd had it done, it all went horribly wrong and he got an infection in the eye and he had to have his whole eye removed. But of course, that was a long time before. That was when I was a child that happened, and things had moved on surgically since then. So I remember I lived in Taunton in Somerset at the time, and the surgeon talking to me about what this operation would involve. And just from him talking to me, I fainted on the floor in his office, just the thought of it. But I soon put my big girl pants on and realized it wasn't going to be so awful. He reassured me, and a few weeks later, that the hospital were wonderful. I was given a donor cornea. I was told that the donor was a man in his 60s.
Wow.
So, and it all went really well, was fine. So that was my right eye. So that was when I was in my early 40s, I think. And then 2 or 3 years later, my left eye, same thing happened. So I had to have a donor cornea in my left eye. Again, it was a man in his 60s. I used to joke at the time that I was now going to lust after young women because I was seeing the world through the eyes of two old men. So it was fine because I wasn't too worried about it. Once it all healed up, my eyes still looked okay. My eyes had always been my best feature, and I loved wearing eye makeup and all of that. So, I loved my eyes, and it took a while. For the other issue was I had to have stitches around the corneas, which were not dissolvable. So every few months, the stitches would come loose. I'd have to get to a hospital as soon as possible, have them removed. So I was on holiday once in Verona, and I had that horrible feeling, oh no, I think a stitch is broken. Had said to the friend I was with, we need to get to a hospital ASAP. And sure enough, one of the stitches had broken and they had to remove it because it would be really painful.
Yeah.
So that would happen quite, every few months. So I could never be anywhere where I wasn't able to get to a hospital. And that impacted on where I went to work, because my marriage ended when I was 50. I then was applying for jobs internationally, and I thought, well, I can't go out to the back end of Beyond because I need to be near a hospital. So that was always a factor. But it was fine on the whole, and I still have my beautiful eyes until 2015. And then it all went horribly wrong because it wasn't the corneal dystrophy so much, although that the cornea was failing, but I also got glaucoma, very serious glaucoma. And the two things together, they couldn't deal with the cornea without dealing with the glaucoma first. And the surgeon tried various procedures, hoping that a less invasive procedure might help. But in the end, it didn't. I think I had 8 surgeries in 2015.
Gosh.
But the worst thing, it might sound really, I'm sure you as a woman will identify with this, for me, was not losing the sight in my eye, because after all, as you know, we can still do most things. I mean, I know with you, it's affected your career. And with me now, I can't drive. Until recently, I could. So that obviously there are impacts on the things that we can do. Mostly, I can function and do everything that I want to do with one eye. But it was the appearance of my eye that really upset me. And my good eye started to, I don't know why, but it started to get droopy. Both eyes were getting droopy. I just felt really ugly at a time in life. So I'm 67 now. when everything's falling apart anyway. But I used to think it's so unfair because as we get older, a lot of people, really old people, still have beautiful eyes. And I've got a dog, Oscar, and I used to be taking him into nursing homes as a therapy dog. And I always notice people's eyes
Mm.
since this has happened to me.
Me
And
too.
some of, yes, yeah. And some of these old people, men and women, I remember seeing this old man who's probably in his 90s, thinking, wow, he's got such beautiful eyes. And it's so unfair because I used to have two beautiful eyes, and I could have, even though I'm getting wrinkles and all the other things with aging, I could have got into my old age and still had my beautiful eyes and enjoyed putting makeup on, and now I can't even do that, you know. So
It's
that really upset me. I struggled with
yeah.
that, and I hated looking in the mirror.
It's a very
Yeah,
strange thing, isn't it? I didn't realize until I lost my eye that so much of our identity is tied up in them. You know, being a photographer, I'm always encouraging people, especially women who I photograph, to really be themselves and embrace what they look like and love themselves. And I would have been the first person to say, I don't buy into all this, beauty is only skin deep. It's about what you look like, until I had to deal with having a facial difference. And then I realized just how deeply entrenched that conditioning is about what we look
yeah,
like is our beauty. And
yeah,
it's still a real thing to unravel and pick and still be able to feel beautiful looking different. I've been lucky enough to get a prosthetic shell, and I'm purposely not wearing it for this recording because I think it's really important to show people who are slightly, newer to this journey than us, that we do look different, and it feels really yucky, but it's something that
yeah,
is okay, and that's a journey in itself. I found losing sight. Lots of journeys within journeys within journeys, lots of
yeah,
layers. Every day there's a layer to peel off and understand about yourself and the world around us and how people react to you. And gosh,
yeah,
so much, isn't there?
yeah. Yes, exactly. Yes. Yeah, and I was lucky with my surgeon in Barnstable that he's also a plastic surgeon as well as an eye surgeon. And he I was there once having a checkup, and I said one of the things that really upsets me is my the appearance. I mean, there's nothing. I'll show you at some point. I'll take my eye patch off and you'll see. But I mean, the eye itself is very sort of opaque looking, and it's got worse, so it looks milky. But it wasn't just that, it was the sort of the shape of my eyes, the droopiness of my eyes, and both of them. And he said, I can fix that for you. So I had three altogether eye lift surgeries, and that helped a lot because even if I don't wear my eye patch, I don't all the time, the shape of the eye is fine. It's just the eyeball is ugly. Um,
It did going for more eye surgery, even though it wasn't in your eye but around your eye. Did
yeah,
that come with a level of anxiety? Were you worried
no,
about that, or you were just keen to have them looking nice?
yeah, no, I wasn't worried. I'd had so many operations. I'd almost become blasé about it by that point. The one surgery that I know I will have to have at some point, which I will be absolutely shitting myself, pardon me, over is I'm getting a cataract on my good eye. And I know that at some point, probably in a year, within the next 2 years, I'm going to have that removed. And I know cataract surgery is normally very straightforward and easy. Nothing's ever been straightforward and easy with my eyes. So I kind of have this fatalistic feeling that, but I mustn't go there really in my head. All the other surgeries I'd had after that first time when I fainted on the floor of my surgeon's office, since then I've become a lot more stronger when it's come to having the actual operations. Actually, another thing which was scary was the glaucoma is in my left eye as well, and it was getting worse. This is about 3 years ago. The pressure was going up and up, and I had to take eye drops every hour through the day. to control it. And of course, they were doing everything to save my only eye. And I was on some medication as well for about a year. And then eventually he said to me, look, we can't sustain this because there's not the side effects of the tablet I was on. It was affecting my kidneys, I think it was. So he said, we're going to have to operate and put a shunt in your eye. Well, at that point, I decided to go privately, and I went to Moorfields in London because my surgeon, my lovely surgeon in Barnstable, said, I can do it for you. But he said, I'd recommend you go to this guy in London. So I paid, it was £8,000 for, well, it's worth it to go to London, and I had a shunt in my left eye. But of course, as I was going under, as I remember lying there and thinking, this might be the last face I ever see.
Gosh, powerful.
When, when the nurse was putting me under, and I was thinking, if this all goes wrong, like it had 2 years before with my right eye, this might be it. This might be the last person that I see. But it was okay. The following morning, though, of course, I was bandaged on my left eye, couldn't see in my right eye. And Phil, my husband, he was staying in a hotel nearby. I think it was in the evening because I was able to go back to the hotel for the night. Phil had to take me from the hospital to the hotel, and I couldn't see a thing because I had to keep the bandage on until the following morning. So that was quite funny. He was holding my hand and saying, "There's a curb here, and we're going to cross the road." And
that gave you a taste for what it might be to be fully blind,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
I wanted to pick up on something that came to mind as you were talking about, feeling anxious about your good eye. That's something that I've really felt in the last year, and definitely to start with, there's almost this sudden awareness that taste for how difficult life is with one eye. And you're just like, gosh, I couldn't imagine not having both. We must now protect that forevermore. So
Yeah.
to go into surgery on that eye is such a brave thing to do. I can imagine it was petrifying.
Yes, it was. Yes. And the following morning that they told me you can take the bandage off before you come back to the hospital in the morning. So I was sort of peeling it off. I think I can see. It's fine, I can see. But
And
it looked awful. It's really bruised, and which didn't bother me too much because I knew that would be superficial.
And can I ask about your vision in your bad eye? Is there any
Yeah.
vision at all? Can you see anything, or is it completely black?
It's not black. I can see light. So I could see if I was, I could turn my head and see towards the sun. I could see this, but I could see light and a dark. And if somebody moves their hand, if I can sense movement if it's really close.
Right.
But I wouldn't be able to see what it was making the movement. So it's yeah.
And is that helpful or disorientating? Because I can't see anything whatsoever. It's complete pitch
No.
black. And
Yeah.
sometimes I wonder whether that's better than being able to see strange shapes and light.
Yeah. So if I'm not wearing my eye patch, it's blurry. I've got a sense of blurriness there. So in a way, wearing my eye patch, apart from it, I wear it for cosmetic reasons. I think I can see better with my left eye if I have got an eye patch on. Although having said that, I think our brains do a really good job to compensate. You relearn, don't you? I think when you've lost a part of your body or a sense or whatever, I think the brain starts to kick in and compensate for that. So I'm not saying that if I never wore an eye patch, I wouldn't be able to see as well with my left eye. Maybe I would, but I choose to wear the eye patch because I just like them. Another thing I have tried, so they offered me a cosmetic contact lens.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried that, but it was so uncomfortable because the surface of my eye apparently is very pitted. So it was, I tried and tried and it just felt awful. And then I have sometimes thought, oh, well, perhaps I'll do what you've done, I think, and have my whole eye removed, and what my dad did, have my whole eye removed and have a prosthetic eye. But the thought of that, because I don't have to, that to me feels like a really invasive thing to do. And so I've chosen not to go down that route because I don't have to.
Yeah, and gosh, what a decision to have to make, hey? I haven't had my whole eye removed. I still have
Okay.
a tiny, teeny little eyeball in here.
Oh,
But
right.
shrunk so much. I imagine that's like a muscle wastage. You know, if you don't use a muscle,
Yeah.
it knows it's not needed, and so it shrinks away.
Right.
Because my eyeball was so very damaged in the accident that I had, I think it
Yeah.
realizes it's
Yeah.
not needed. So what I have is called a scleral shell, which is
Yeah.
a bigger form of contact lens. So it's a plastic shell that sits on top of my current eye rather than a complete
Right.
whole prosthetic eye. They call it a
Yeah.
prosthetic, and it is on some level, but on other levels it's actually not, because it's not replacing what's in there. So
I see. Yes. Yeah.
so
That
clever.
might be what my dad had.
Mm.
I mean, I'm not sure because he's not around to ask him, but I've still got one of his prosthetic eyes, and it's quite thick, but it's got a hollowed out bit at
Yes,
the
like
back.
a moon, a cup-shaped thing. Yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's yeah.
Right. And
But
it's really funny because when I was teaching, I taught primary age children, and I'd read Roald Dahl's The Twits. And I don't know whether you're familiar
I
with
am.
this. Okay, well, Mrs. Twit had a glass eye,
Right.
and there's one chapter where she's teasing Mr. Twit, and she's telling him that I've always got my eye on you. And she's taken her glass eye out and put it in the bottom of his beer mug. So there's a picture in the book of him drinking, and as he's drinking, this her eyes at the bottom of the beer mug looking up at him, and he's So I used to read this story to these sort of 6, 7 year olds, and then I'd say, and I've got Mr. Twit's beer mug. And I'd bring out from behind me, and I've got a beer tankard that, like the one in the story, and taped to the bottom with blue tack is my dad's eye. I
Oh.
said, and I passed it round the children. They would, oh gosh, they would shriek. And it was
Oh.
so funny. And my dad was a teacher as well. So I used to think, look into the eye at the bottom of the mug, and to myself, I'd say, hi, Dad, you'd be really amused by this, because he would love to see that happening with his eye. So that was just something funny that I used to do when I was teaching.
Well,
But that
and
was before I lost mine.
right. Yeah. But I
Mm.
think you're touching on something that I've discovered in the last year, which is sometimes really heavy stuff can be lightened with a little humor. So
Yeah.
one of the things that I've done is named my prosthetic eye. She has a name. She's treated like one of the family, and that just makes
Great.
it slightly less heavy. Can I bring you round to what it was like when you first obviously experienced having one eye, those first few months? If we imagine that right now, the person that's listening to this and really needs to hear it is the person who's just lost their eye. Can we describe, firstly, what you were told by the doctors in terms of what it would be like, and then what you actually experienced life to be like, relearning all of the things?
Charlie, I'm not sure that they did tell me. I can't remember being told by the doctors what it was going to be like. Um,
Interesting, because I wasn't either.
no.
And this is partly
And
why I'd love you to share this, and I want to share more of
yeah,
it, because I'm not quite sure why we're not being told.
exactly. exactly, whether is it just they're too busy or what. But no, I wasn't told anything about losing depth perception or anything that I can remember. One of the things that I remember very vividly is that I was very, very light sensitive.
Mm.
So much so that my sighted eye would just stream with tears. And I remember walking, and I hated going out and about and in shops because I almost felt as though I had to have a hat with a brim because any light would feel uncomfortable. That got better over time. As far as other things went, I've been frustrated that other people have not always appreciated what it's like. People assume you're just being clumsy.
Yes. Yeah. What is it like? Can you perhaps try and
Okay.
describe some of
Yes.
that?
So obviously I can't see anything on my right side. So if I'm in town and there's lots of people around, I feel quite vulnerable that
Mm.
I'm going to bump into people on my right side. And actually that's another advantage of wearing an eye patch because I feel that maybe people around you will see that you've got an eye patch and they might understand that this is
Yeah.
somebody who's got a disability. Whereas if you've got a prosthetic eye, you look normal. It's not obvious that you're blind. So people, if you did bump into somebody or whatever, people might not have the same understanding. Um, if I'm in the house, there's been a few occasions. I need to be careful if I've opened a kitchen cupboard, that I'm aware that I've opened it, and that because if I've then turned around to do something else, I might bump my head into it. There've been very few occasions when I've actually banged my head into something on the right side.
I have banged my face and my head on so many things since I
Yes,
was
yeah,
blinded. It's, yeah, and
yeah.
you feel really silly when you do it, don't you? Because what I find quite strange is that the things that are in this part of your view that you can no longer see, to me
Hmm.
anyway, they're just not even there, but they are there.
Yeah,
It's just that I
yeah.
can't see them. It's like a very strange thing to get your head around to start with.
Yeah, and if I'm near traffic crossing a road, I have to make sure I turn my head right away round to make sure that there's nothing coming. So there's the sort of the safety aspect of it. I was able to drive until a few months ago. So in 2015, I had to obviously declare the sight loss to the DVLA, and then every 3 years since then, I had to have a special test to check my peripheral vision. And until this year, I had enough peripheral vision to drive. So it was a bit of a bummer, partly because we live very rural and there's hardly any public transport. But also, I think the main issue for me is the fact, well, if they're saying my peripheral vision's deteriorated, that means my sight's deteriorated in my only eye, which is
Mm.
worrying. But it's not obvious to me that my sight has deteriorated. So it must be very incremental enough for me to be not able to drive anymore. But what about you? Are you able to drive?
I
Yes.
am, yes,
Yeah.
thankfully. And like
Yeah.
you, we both live in Devon. I live in a very
Yeah.
rural part of the world too,
Yeah.
and there are
Yeah.
no buses in my village. So
No.
uh, I actually made sure that I jumped back in my car as soon as I possibly could
Yeah.
to feel
Yeah.
comfortable with that because I
Mhm.
wasn't ready to let go of the independence that came with having a car. And
No.
if I,
Mm.
so I realize that you haven't had that choice. That's been made for you, which is a
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
thing. But for me, the choice was, okay, the doctors are saying I can. I do have the
Yeah.
peripheral vision. So the choice is,
Yeah.
am I going to deal with the fear and the anxiety of getting back in a
Hmm.
car? And for me, the prize at the other side was worth that that
Yeah.
battle.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I see you and understand you in terms of losing that because it's a big thing, isn't it?
Mm.
It's a
Yeah.
big
It is. Yeah.
independence thing. Thinking about that initial phase of relearning everything that we were just talking about,
Yeah.
Are there any any tips and tricks that you learned along the way that you picked up? Any adjustments that you made to make life easier? Any physical tools that you found were helpful?
Uh, I don't think anything physical. No. I think maybe it can affect your balance.
Mm.
I've been told that it can affect your balance, but I've not put in place anything physical to improve that.
One of the things that springs to light, and I've seen it talked about in various online groups that I'm in, is light. The contrast of light to dark, I find very difficult. It feels like it
Oh,
takes my good eye 10 minutes or so to get used to dark before I can see properly in it. Do you have that?
oh, I haven't noticed
Interesting.
that.
And so one of the things that I have in my house is we've all got kind of dark corners in our houses that aren't lit as well. I really
Mhm.
notice that. So I've got this little thing that wraps around my neck that's got two LED lights on it. I should have it with
Oh,
me. My family joke that they're called my headlights, and so there's just a button, and if I'm in a dark place and I need a bit more light, I can just go click click, and it shines, and you can
oh,
so you can turn the light up and
yeah,
down, and
right.
that's why I was asking about physical tools because that's what I have
Yeah.
that's pretty useful. But
Uh,
it's also really
mm.
interesting to hear that that's not a thing necessarily for you. That
But
being half blind is not the same for each person.
obviously it's not. Yeah.
What would you say has been the hardest thing about this journey for you?
The way it's affected how I feel about my appearance.
Mm, yeah.
Um, and yeah, I hate looking at my reflection in the mirror when I've not got my eye patch on. I feel as though I've got to make much more effort now to feel attractive.
Mm,
Um, and yeah, that's so, and that's all tied in very intrinsically with my own my sense of
self-worth, I
myself.
think, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
So I think for me that's been the biggest issue.
And
Mm.
have you done anything to process that to help that to help that sit better with you?
I've written about it, so I think I shared with you some of the stuff that I've written because for me, writing out how I feel about anything that's in my life and going on for me is a way that I process things.
Mm.
So
Your writing
that's
was
for me.
beautiful. It was beautiful to read.
Okay,
And
thank
also
you, Charlie.
from another half-sighted person, quite validating to read that,
Yeah,
we share some of the same feelings about how this
yeah,
pans out. Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Mm.
Um, yeah, that's my way of processing anything in my life is to just write it down. Yeah.
But it's kind of a non-judgmental place, right? You don't even
Yeah.
have to ever share it with anyone. You can just write and get these
No.
things out, and
Mm.
then they become,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And what about funny stories? I've heard some funny stories from other people. Have you got any funny stories of silly things you've done?
Um, Not silly things I've done, but as so much as I remember being at a wedding reception a few years ago, and it was one of Phil's friends, and I didn't know these people very well, and most of them I'd never met. And I wore an eye patch. There was this little boy and and he was probably about 5, and he was looking at me, and he said, "Are you a pirate?" And I said, "Yes, I am. And I live on an island, on a desert island, and I've got treasure in a chest on my island, and I was sort of playing along with him, and he was sort of wide-eyed. So I sort of played along with this question that he'd asked me. And then there was another funny thing that it's from out of the mouths of babes and sucklings, isn't it? These things happen. A little girl we know down the road, and she's I think she's five or six, and she was round here one day, and I had an eye patch on, and she said, "Why do you wear an eye patch?" And I said, "Oh, it's because my eye's blind and it doesn't look very pretty." And she said, "Can I have a look?" So I said, "Yes, of course you can." And I lifted my eye patch. She said, "Oh, no, it doesn't, does it?" And you
The
know what?
truth of
I
babes.
thought, yeah, and I loved that her honesty, because you get people who say, "Oh, I don't notice. Oh, you look beautiful anyway," and all of those things. And actually, that doesn't that doesn't work for me,
Mm.
because I know that I'm not beautiful in the way that I was once.
I think
And
that's the great point that you just added to the end, because I think somebody externally, me included, would say, "Oh no, you are," but in your own mind, that doesn't
yeah,
matter because you have what you had before to compare it to.
exactly.
It's
Yeah,
not that you're
yeah,
not beautiful; it's that you don't feel as beautiful as you used to, and that's a real
yeah.
thing, right? And it's
It is.
upsetting.
It is.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't know whether you've seen them before. So just before the meeting, I sent you a messenger with a series of photographs. So that kind of, shows my journey from beauty to ugly in my
Oh,
head.
yeah, yeah.
But sometimes I feel I need to own that.
The owning it is a really interesting one. And you touched on it
Hmm.
earlier on with wearing your eye patch and having people around you understand that you can't see out of that eye, and how with a
Yeah.
prosthetic that might be different. And you're absolutely right, because um, I've actually just got a really bright purple prosthetic eye
Oh,
for
wow.
the same reason.
Yes.
Well, for two reasons actually, because I want people around me to be able to know that I can't see out of that eye, and it's more
Yeah.
obvious that it's false if it's bright purple, right?
Yes. Yeah.
um, but also, I don't want to feel shame and hide
Hmm.
the fact that I have a prosthetic.
Hmm.
And having a matching eye is really lovely if I'm going into situations where I don't want people to know, and I don't want
Yeah.
to lead with that as the conversation. But more and more, and I'm like 14 months on from losing my eye, more and more, I actually do want people to know. And I don't
Hmm.
want to hide from it, and I want to be
Hmm.
proud of it, and I want to proudly show it, just like you do with your beautiful sparkly eye patch. And also I don't want other people to feel awkward about talking to me
No.
about it either, because it's become a part of
Hmm.
who I am. And,
Yeah.
like the lovely child who spoke the truth,
Yeah.
that's actually quite refreshing, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
Yes. Yeah.
so given that the reason we're doing this is to help people who are maybe earlier in this journey than us, there's two things that I'd be really interested for your opinion on. And the first one is what this experience has given you. It's brilliant with hindsight, isn't it? That we can look back and go, gosh, that was a really difficult time and still is in many ways. But there was something in it that I can see was positive or useful or learning, or, is there anything that you feel that you have gathered by going through this?
Uh, yeah. I think it's connected me to other
Mm.
people who've been through similar. So I went to Facebook as my go-to place to find a community. And I've made a couple of friends on there through both in America, who I've communicated with a few times and shared tips. One of them wanted, well, they both wanted to know where I got my eye patches from,
Uh-huh.
and quite a lot. I quite often get asked that on Facebook. Where did you get? And I like to share
Mm.
something that's worked for me. So I'll just let them know how this has been for me, because I mean when I first I d I didn't know where to source eye patches that would be comfortable and that would look nice. And it took a while to
Mm.
people and helping other people who were perhaps a little bit behind me in the journey. And one of the things I have wondered about, it goes back to what you were saying, did the doctors tell you what it would be like? And no, they didn't. And next time I go to the hospital for a checkup, I'm thinking perhaps I will take, I mean, I don't wear an eye patch when I go because they always want to look in my blind eye as well. But I think perhaps I will, and I'll take some of the eye patches along with me, and I will say to the doctors, look, if you know anyone who's on the start of this journey who's struggling, put them in touch with me because I can help people source comfortable, good eye patches that might help them to feel better about themselves.
It's lovely. And
Yeah,
this is also what I would like to do with this podcast. I would like to put posters up in eye units saying,
yeah,
if you are going through this and you want to hear some stories from other people,
yeah,
listen to this podcast. And because
yeah,
you're absolutely right, it's at that point in that doctor's room that you need to hear the supportive places that can help, right? And
exactly. Yeah,
I'm quite passionate about why are they not there? Because in the last 14 months, just like you, I've sought out places where there are brilliant, supportive people who are going through this in the same way that we are. There's some
yeah,
amazing Facebook communities, which I'll share in the show notes of this. And there are hundreds of us,
yes,
hundreds all over the
yeah,
world of people with
there
one
are.
eye who have got so
Yeah.
much wisdom about it. And I don't really
Mm,
quite understand why it was so difficult to find at the start when I first lost my
yeah,
eye. So
yeah,
hopefully us sharing these little sprinkles of wisdom and you taking patches to the doctors, if everybody with one eye does that, then maybe the people who lose
yeah,
eyes further down the line might start to feel
yeah.
a little bit more support.
And it gives you a warmth, doesn't it, if you feel that you've done that for somebody else. I mean, I've two friends of mine have got elderly mothers who have both lost sight in one of their eyes. And they both approached me, these two different friends, over the few months ago, and said, "Oh, Carol, my mother's struggling. She's finding it really difficult. Could you let me know? You know, what's it like for you wearing an eye patch?" And one of them, Jill, she actually Zoomed with me with her mum, and I was able to talk to her mum about it and tell her where I got them from. And I think she then, oh, I was able to send her not a leather one, but a fabric one, which she tried out. She said she found it really helpful. The other lady, I was able to let her try one of my patches, and she found it was just because these are old ladies in their 90s. They weren't
Yeah.
to know. And there must be, as you say, hundreds, thousands of people out there
Yeah.
struggling with all sorts of issues to do
Mm,
with being
mm.
once
And
one-eyed.
I've felt lucky in the respect that I'm young and tech savvy and able to
Yeah,
do lots of research, and I'm able to talk to other people who are medically savvy, and I'm able to sit in a room
yeah,
with a consultant and advocate for myself and
yeah.
know which questions I need to ask. But I do really feel for the older people who are perhaps not so technically savvy or don't have people around them that can help them in that way, or don't, and not even necessarily older, just any people who don't feel that they can
Mhm.
advocate for themselves in the way that
Yeah.
I've been able to. It just makes me
Mhm.
wonder, gosh, yeah, if we collectively can help a few of those people, then that
Yeah.
makes the situation that I and you find ourselves in just feel a little bit better, doesn't it?
Of course it
Others.
does. Yeah. Yes. Yes, it does. Yeah. Another thing that I
Mm,
likened it to is where people, I remember seeing a documentary or an article once about a young woman who'd lost a leg.
mm,
And I think she was a dancer or an athlete. And she'd got this prosthetic leg, which was a thing of beauty.
mm,
It wasn't just a standard prosthetic leg. It actually was made the way it patterned, coloured, whatever. And then there's also women who've had mastectomies and decide to have their chests tattooed.
yes.
as a way to accept and feel beautiful again. And that's, for some people, that's the way they accept themselves after losing something. And yeah, I think there's all sorts of situations where people try to do that.
I
Mm,
think there's something in that, in kind of taking your power back, taking control of something that you didn't
yeah,
choose and you didn't
yeah,
want, and trying
mm,
to, certainly for me, in doing things like sharing this podcast, it's okay, I had something really awful happen and it feels like this yucky horrible shape at the moment. What can I
yeah,
do to make that shape feel more happy and positive in myself
yeah.
and for others? And so yeah,
Mm.
and we all have different ways of doing that, right? But
Of course.
I love what you just said about you know, having something that makes you feel beautiful again. It's a thing of beauty. So an eye patch, you've chosen to have a beautiful sparkly green eye patch that stands out and is gorgeous. Like it reminds me of Emerald City. You could have chosen to have a big bulky horrible ugly one and still feel ashamed of it, but you're wearing it with
Yeah,
what looks to me and feels
yeah,
with pride, and that's what
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like you with your purple
yeah,
prosthetic.
we don't need
Mm.
to be ashamed of these things.
No, no, we don't. No, no.
So
Well,
this
there's a few. I've got a few here that
Oh wow.
I'll show you.
Fab.
Um, so yeah. So these are all made by a lady in Canada, um, who's yeah, who I discovered through Etsy. And
And would you be
yeah.
happy to share her details with me and me pop them
Oh,
in the show
yes,
notes of this podcast?
absolutely. Yes,
So
yes,
if
of
there's
course.
somebody who's listening and has seen
Yeah.
those and would like to have a look, they can
Mm,
just check the show notes and we can give them a
yes.
link there. Lovely. And that kind of brings me round to my last question, really. And that is, what advice you might give to someone if somebody's listening to this in the depths of the fear and the sadness? Do you have any advice that you could offer them right now?
Um, uh, to know that there is light at the end of the tunnel, that you will feel better further down the line, that you're going to be feeling pretty horrible right now, fearful. You might be in pain, um, for whatever reason you've lost your eye. Um, but you will get through to the other side. And for me, my journey also encompasses the thought that one day, because my only eye left is compromised, that I might lose that as well. So I kind of put in place, I think ahead to that not being a worst case scenario if that happened. So, I'd get a guide dog. Way, that would be for me a wonderful thing to have. Um, so there is always, there's always something. There's always sunlight around the clouds.
I think we can
Um,
always, I think it's quite a natural thing, especially if we're in shock, having gone through trauma of losing an
yeah.
eye and we're very sad. It's always very easy for us to focus on the negative and the sadness.
Mm,
But if you can find ways just to step a little bit beyond that zone,
yeah.
then there are positive things that you can focus on. And yes, it involves accepting that they might not have been anywhere near what was positive before. But there
Mm,
are still, you can still choose, just as you've said, it's such a beautiful example. I may lose all of my sight, but I'll get a wonderful guide dog and that will be lovely. I mean,
mm,
you know, what a way of spinning
yeah.
the positive on it. So, yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you
Yeah.
for that.
No, that's all right, Charlie. I ought to show you my eye
Ah, yeah,
after all of this.
I see. Yes. So
Yeah.
yours has remained its original
Yeah.
shape,
I've still
but
got.
it's
Yes.
kind of
Yeah.
clouded over.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. So, yeah.
I know
Yeah.
that this doesn't land in the same way that I'll say it, but I think that eye is still beautiful.
Thank you.
And I think your story is beautiful, and I think it's lovely thing that you have felt confident enough to come and share with me. I hope
Yes.
that this episode lands well on ears that it's needed. Let's send it out to
Mm.
people that need to hear our
Yes,
stories. So thank you very
absolutely,
much.
Charlie. That's all right. Well, it's been an absolute delight to
Mm.
meet you.
Ah, Carol, thank you so much. What an inspirational conversation. For me, on a personal level, it was really lovely, validating, and kind of heartwarming to have a chat with somebody else who is in the same boat, who really gets what it's like to have just one eye and to go through that process. Some of the things that stood out for me were Carol's lovely lightness and positivity and humour around the situation. I share that. It brings light to heavy stuff. I loved her view of reframing what might be in the future. There is a potential that she may become fully blind, and instead of getting wrapped up in the anxiety and the difficulties of that, she chose to focus on the beautiful guide dog that might come into her life. Oh, what a way to create a silver lining on something that can feel pretty dark and heavy. And I hope that anybody listening, especially if you have one eye or you're going through the journey of acceptance of what might have just happened to you, I hope that you can hear in both of our voices that there is life after losing one eye, that it will be okay, and there is hope. And there is also people to reach out to who understand what you're going through. So it's been my pleasure to bring this interview to you, and I look forward to sharing many more on this journey of one eye on the horizon.